Welcome to Artspeak. This is Phil McNally, and we're into episode 2 of Gallery Owners. And this is a gallery owner, Jason Horsch. And we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of where artists go and how they get into galleries. And Jason's going to go a little bit more into detail as far as profiles and other things that artists need to be aware of and have, and what gallery owners actually look for, and what to do when you're not sure as an artist. Where do I go? How do I do it? Jason expands on that in this episode. So sit back. Hopefully you'll enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe. And good marks for everybody, especially me if you can. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So let's turn it around then, because we talked about you doing a webinar. We talked about you helping out artists. So tell me how you help out artists. Tell me how you, as a gallery owner, would say, okay, I have my collectors and I have my artists, but there are other, and I've got the artists that I like and that I want and that help me with my business. But I'm also looking. You're saying you're a different kind of gallery owner,
Sure.
saying, okay, how do you help out other artists who come up to you and you look at it? Of course, you're going to look at them and say, I get this too. I mean, you come up to and say, hey, that's not worth even looking at. So let's not talk about it. But you may get some that come in and say, hey, not bad. We don't really want it, but not bad. Here's where you could go. Here's how you could go. I mean, would you help in that respect?
Yeah, and so the way I kind of think about this is that it's not as if I am some great guru or wizard who has the secret password and the way to get in, and that it's some great mystery. But a lot of times, and for a lot of artists, just some of the real basics are missing
Mm.
in their package that they're getting ready to present to galleries, or even just in their thought processes about engaging with galleries. And so, when I'm giving a webinar or I do some critiques and that kind of thing, what I'm really aiming to do is to give you the tools that you're going to need, the mindset that you're going to need to have in place so that you can do all these things that you and I have been talking about. Okay, what does your portfolio need to look like? Just even from a formatting standpoint, what should it be looking like? What tools should you be using to create that portfolio? How long should that portfolio be? How many images of artwork should I include? How do I determine if my artwork is consistent? What are the ingredients of a consistent body of artwork? And so I kind of share my approach to how I analyze work for consistency. And then my hope is that an artist can look at their own work a little bit more objectively, and know where to focus their efforts on creating a cohesive body of work.
let,
Um,
let,
you
let,
know,
let me just you're hitting on a note that's really a heartbeat on me. I mean, the consistency, the cohesion. But I wanted to get into this, and I'm going to interrupt you just a little
sure.
bit on this part, because this is where I think artists have problems, and this is why I have my podcast. And it's like, as you said, you can get on the internet and it's saturated market. You're gonna hit millions of people with your artwork, and maybe some will see it, maybe some not. What I'm trying to do, to a certain extent, is say, okay, how does in a gallery owner, and much less how does an artist as an artist see their art? Because most of them, it's very personal.
Yeah.
It's my art. um, don't criticize it. I don't want you to put me down in any sort of way. I love it. But how do you determine, how can an artist determine, and I guess a gallery owner definitely can determine this, but how does an artist determine this is good art or this is not so good art, and I've got to
Yeah.
get that?
That's a great question, Phil. And I think that cuts right to the heart of the challenge that every artist who's launching themselves into the public realm has to face, right? Yeah, I love it, as you say, but how do I know if other people are gonna like it or not? And um I will put it this way. So 2001 till now, I've interacted with thousands of artists, both those approaching my gallery, but then also many artists through my blog and through social media. And I can't think of a circumstance, a single time where I've interacted with an artist, I've seen their work, and I've said to them, cut your losses, quit, stop creating. Maybe you
Go
should be a
home.
singer or musician or something else because
Yeah.
it ain't art.
Hmm.
Um, it's not that I haven't seen varying degrees of technical proficiency, some excellent artists from a technical standpoint, and some who are just getting started and still have. But I have become convinced that everyone who has a passion for art, and the willingness to put in the work that it takes to develop that artwork ultimately can create artwork that will find people out there who resonate with it, who like it, who want to buy it. And we live in a vast market of potential buyers, and their interests are just as diverse as artists' interests are, and their skill levels. Is your work going to make it into the Metropolitan Museum of Art and be bought by, multi-billionaires? Maybe not. Maybe the art critics aren't going to, give you accolades. But again, that's not what every artist is interested in. If I can
No,
find a
but
small market of my work and sell my work to those people, and it betters their life and it gives me an outlet for my artwork,
right.
that's enough for many artists.
But they're regardless whether you're doing it for your mother and father or whether you're doing it for the mass millions. I mean, you're looking for acceptance.
Sure.
So what I'm kind of getting to, alluding to, is that when do you see your art as being accepted on the level of business, saying that, okay, this will work out there in the art business world, where if I didn't take that last course of using this technique, my art stunk. It wouldn't work at all. So
Yeah.
where's that level to say that I'm going to go out and get 100 different gallery owners and I'm going to send this profile to? Where am I wasting my time and where am I not?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm gonna push back on the premise just a little bit, because even there, we're almost imagining a world in which all galleries are the same, that they all have some
right?
objective
Mm-hmm.
standard that they hold everyone to, that there's just this uniform idea of what an acceptable piece of artwork is. But even in the gallery world, there are galleries that are interested in catering to different audiences and that carry work that is at different levels. And as I mentioned to you, I brought in some young artists who were pretty raw, and needed some direction. But what I'm interested in is potential. And
Mm.
I think that as an artist, what you should be focusing in on is your own potential and what you can be doing to achieve that potential. And your potential is going to be very different than every other artist
Right,
out there.
right.
And again, I'm convinced that we're in a unique point in the history of the world where there are more potential art buyers out there than there have ever been. There is
Mm-hmm.
more disposable income available to buy artwork. You don't have to find a Medici family to be your patron anymore. You have people in your own hometown who are going to be delighted to pay several hundred or several $1,000s for your artwork. And as you do that, that then gives you the opportunity to further develop and continue to grow. And I think of it more as a spectrum than as some black and white world where there are artists who are good enough and artists who aren't. Do some artists have a lot more work to do, and a lot more development of potential to pursue? Sure. But again, some art collectors, their taste is developing as well, and it's going to develop along with you. And so um, I, I tend to be a bit of an optimist, I guess, and a pragmatist. And, again, I'm just never going to have an engagement with an artist where I say, nope, it stinks, it's crap, give up. because I think that ignores the potential that is there. And again, Phil, I
Hmm.
don't want, obviously, all we have to do is go to an art show or even a flea market, and we can see some art that is going to hurt our eyeballs.
Right.
We almost feel like we're
Right.
going to want to poke them with a fork and never see again. I'm not saying there's not terrible artwork out there, but even that terrible artwork came from somewhere, and the person who created it has potential to improve it. And the
Right.
worse your artwork is, the more potential for improvement there is. So, you know, I would encourage an artist to work their hardest, to hustle and look for opportunities to share and show your artwork, no matter how good or bad you might think it is. And then as you start getting responses to that work, learn from it,
Yeah.
improve,
Yeah. And
and
that
build on it.
that's where I was going. I think it's I had other artists on here, and and we've kind of him and Han on the same thing. I think it's a long game, and there is no, like you said, there is, and I agree, there is no black and white. It is a spectrum of different colors, and it's like you have to take your time and figure it out and see what the results will be. The results that you throw out on, let's say you call 50 galleries, in the next 3 months, and most of them out of the 50 say no. And then others say, oh, it's not too bad. But then again, you wait to next year, you do it again, and all of a sudden, man, you got, what, 15,
Yeah,
20, 30 more, because you developed, you've grown. So
right.
it's just a long, to me, it keeps coming back to a long game, and
That's
you got
right.
to keep at it and just add it and add it and add it, and eventually something's going to hit. But even if it hits, you still got to keep at
No,
it to keep
that's
it going.
exactly right. And I've never met an artist kind of on the other end of that spectrum who feels like, I'm there. It's all good. My work is great. I don't need to improve.
I'm
I
a Da
don't need to
Vinci.
be
I'm
better.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, there's still room for improvement, and that's where that's what keeps it interesting is seeing how you can push it and where the work can go and how it can develop, and it's only over when we're dead, and so I would just try and be encouraging, and if I'm an artist, I guess the only element where I might say an artist has the potential for disaster is if they're not willing to put in the work, if they
Mm-hmm.
want it to be
Mm-hmm.
easy, if they're
Mm-hmm.
just looking for
Mm-hmm.
instant gratification. If you're
Right.
looking for a get rich quick business,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there have been some artists who have done it over the years, but by and large, the artistic landscape is scattered with the wreckage of artists who haven't been willing to put in that work, and so that would be the only thing that could potentially be in your way.
Well, I think that's what scares most of the as what I call them, hobby artists, and who are at that top level of hobby and saying it's time for business, and then they open that door, and that door is like, oh my God, look
Yeah,
at all the work I've got to do that I
right.
didn't have to do before, and it's like it's a mountain of work. I quit. No,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to go
Well,
there.
and Phil, I think that it's also important to recognize that there are different and very valid alternative motivations for creating art to just the business side of things, what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what I'm focused on, and it's what's important to many artists. But there are other reasons to create, and there are artists out there. We might call them hobbyists, but that can be somewhat diminutive if it's not that their skill is lesser or they're not creating interesting work. It's just that they're not interested in pursuing the business or putting in that level of work, and they can find perfect satisfaction in just the creative process. Other artists are more interested in accolades from their fellow artists than they are in
Right.
selling their work, and that's valid as well. So
But let's
it,
take that point that you're talking about, because here's where I'm going to talk about a little bit in the AI side, because you got into Theobot, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But what I am interested in is say, okay, let's take me as an example. I'm an impressionist artist. Okay, I go out there and I do impressions and of art, and post impression, and I really like it. I really love it. Now I haven't sold much at all, but I want to start selling. So I'm building everything up. But then again, here I go into a Walmart or a TJ Maxx or whatever, and I said, look at their, that's better than what I did.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
and my art, as far as the way that I did it, I consider it against other artists who are at a tier of that level in that genre. And I say, look, I could see myself just a little bit beneath that right now. And here I've got other competition from the marketing side. And
Yeah.
these are salespeople, marketing people just punching this stuff out. And I said, how can I get involved? I don't know. I really want to get involved with that. I mean, this is an original versus something that they printed out,
Right.
but it's at a level that I mean, my God, somebody who says, okay, let's put the two together and put them in frames and say, oh, I want that one that's from the store. It's cheaper and it's
Yeah.
better. So give me an idea on that from a gallery side.
Yes. So no, and that's it's a great question because even as a gallery owner, right, I have to wonder, okay, who's my competition? Is it just other galleries like mine, or am I competing against some of the big box retailers and IKEA and some of these stores that
Mm-hmm.
also sell art? And again, what I've found is that the market is big enough for all of us, and that there are buyers out there who you could tell them, why are you putting this 30 by 40-inch painting by Phil McNally on your wall for $3,000 when you could go down to
Mm-hmm.
your Walmart and buy a 30 by 40-inch piece of artwork for $50?
Mm-hmm.
And what they're going to tell you is it's because I'm not interested in mass produced artwork. I'm not interested in the lowest cost. I'm interested in investing in an original work of art that resonates with me, and that I feel like I have a connection with the creator of that artwork. And so I think we just have to realize that there are as many different motivations for people buying art as there are for motivations for creating it. And you as an artist, you don't need to worry about that kind of competition from all these other locations. There is just always going to be a niche market for you. And as you said, Phil, you don't need to have 10 million buyers buying your artwork. You just
Mm-hmm.
need a few dozen over the course of even your career, a couple of hundred. And we live in a world with 8 billion people. And all we have to do is carve out our small corner of that, that broader market, and we can build very successful careers.
So how do you find these people? How do you find? I guess from an artist standpoint, because it said artists is looking for acceptance, and then they're looking for buyers because if you get accepted, then there's a possibility that they'll buy it.
Yep.
So how do you find this? I would say niche, because we are what you just said a while back says we are faced with a saturated market, millions of people,
Yep.
and how do you get that niche that you are looking for out and get the noise of everything else away from it to where you say, okay, here is my focus.
Yeah, and so now we're going to have to change gears just a little bit, and now we're not going to be talking about something philosophical or sexy. We're going to have to talk about marketing, right? And the simple fact of the matter is that if you want to find your buyers, you got to start with exposure. You've got to have a bunch of eyeballs on your artwork to ever have the chance to narrow in and get those people who are going to be excited and passionate about your work. In the marketing world, they talk about funnels, where you've got this
Right.
broad market at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of people in that broad market, for whatever reason, are not going to be interested or engaged in your artwork and are never going to buy it. The vast majority of them. Let's start with those 8 billion people on the planet. It may be that there's only a million in the entire planet who are even going to be interested in your work. And of those million, maybe only 10,000 are going to be interested and have the income that they can even be qualified to buy artwork. And of those, only a certain fewer number are going to have the right space for that artwork. And of those, even a fewer are going to be in the position where they're ready, and so it is very much this funnel effect. But if I start by looking for the broadest exposure possible, I dramatically increase the likelihood that I'm going to get down into those numbers. And so if I'm an artist, I'm going to be thinking about kind of two ways of getting to those potential buyers. And the one, which we've already discussed, is galleries. If I'm working with galleries, we have the benefits that those galleries are already established and
Right.
they're doing the work to bring the
Correct.
people through the door to see your artwork. So
Hmm.
they're doing a pre-qualification process. And so that's a time-tested manner for artists to get their work seen by the best potential buyers. But that's a limited market. There are limited wall space available, and while I'm going to encourage you to pursue that, I think we would be remiss if we didn't also encourage you to take advantage of the democratization of marketing that has occurred with the advent of social media, the ability to put your artwork on your website and share it through the search engines. There's another great opportunity to put your artwork out to a broad, kind of a vast swath of the marketplace and get it seen, so you can start to narrow in on those buyers. And so, we've been very bullish about digital marketing and social media marketing. Over the last couple of years, I've invested several $100,000 in Facebook and Instagram ads for our gallery and for our artists. And we've seen tremendous results from those efforts. And the interesting thing was that those efforts started out with a very small budget. I mentioned hundreds of thousands of dollars that we spend, and that makes you nervous because you think, well, if I don't have that kind of money, can I compete? And the answer is our first ads were running for just a few dollars a day and started generating interest and sales for us. And so, not every artist is interested in learning what it's going to take to promote themselves on social media and online. But I would just encourage you to at least consider those avenues as opportunities for you to get the broad promotion that you would want for your work.
So as a gallery owner, and there definitely is a myth here. I mean, I'll tell you, and you probably know it as well as I know it, as far as what the artists that I have interviewed and everything. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, we do not understand galleries. We do not understand. We believe that they are semi-gods, that you walk in and that they
Yeah.
fix everything and they do
Or
this,
not.
but
I
then
eat
it's
oatmeal
not.
for breakfast, Phil. I mean, I'm just a human being just like you.
Yeah, but you got a brick and mortar store that you open up,
Yeah.
and you have a ton of collectors and a ton of artists that you have on your sites, as far as in your head. Where artists, we see it as like, oh, these are just a different generation of people that we don't
Right.
know anything about, so we're not going to talk about. And I think a lot of them have been um, thrown away from you. And I'm what I'm hearing out of you is that there's value here. I mean, there's really is value with a gallery, and I think the publication, the marketing, and the information that's out there just gotten all cross-eyed with most artists, because they just see it as it's gone, it's not there. Why go after? The "oh, give me up" scenario. I've done a couple paintings, they're not great, I quit. Da da da.
Yeah.
That kind of, I'm not going to last long. But as you're saying, yeah, the Facebook, Instagram, social media is good, but at the same time, galleries are strong, and they can be just as good for you, even probably more sometimes in some cases. Correct?
Yeah, yes, no. So I think that the kind of the right way to think about this is that there's probably not there's not one right answer to any of this.
Never
That
is.
probably for most artists, to build a successful career, you're going to have to think about some kind of hybrid approach to developing relationships with galleries, but also at the same time maintaining your own client base, putting out a newsletter, building a social media following. I think the artist of the successful artist of the 21st century is going to wear multiple hats. Or at the very least, they're going to know which hats need to be worn, and they're
Right.
going to organize
Right.
those efforts. And maybe they have an assistant or a spouse or somebody who's working alongside them, helping them with those other aspects. Because again, um, if my goal is to generate a living as an artist, and so for me, that means I've got to be generating $100,000 in sales every year, or 150 or 200, whatever the number is. I just know that in order to get to those numbers, I got to look back up the funnel and say, that means I need to be having 20, 30, 40 buyers seeing and acquiring my artwork every year. And that means I've got to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people engaging with it in galleries and
Hmm.
online. And that
Hmm.
just means I need this exposure. And so I do see a frustrating tendency among some artists to kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, oh, it's just too much work, or even worse, to say the system is rigged against me. It's just not fair that this is the way things work, and that I feel like I'm being unfairly kept out of the art market. And what I would say is that again, there's just never been a time in history where an artist has as much opportunity, and as much as many different options to be able to reach those potential buyers. And so I think if you're looking for someone to blame that you haven't
Hmm.
achieved success,
Hmm.
you probably ought to walk to somewhere that has a mirror
Yeah,
and
exactly.
point right at yourself, and get out there and make it happen.
So, from making it happen, let's talk more on your gallery as far as what you do for an artist as you bring an artist in and you invest in that artist. And you say this is it's a time thing. It sometimes they don't happen quickly as far as the sales. You build the marketing up for this artist. Is that correct?
Yeah, so maybe Phil, I could give you an example of
Oh,
an
great.
artist that
Yeah.
we took on. Just it would have been last September or October. So when we're recording this, it's now May. So we're talking about 6, 7, 8 months ago that we took on a new artist, a young artist who lives here locally. About a quarter of my artists are in Arizona, and the rest come from all over North America. So I have a bit of a variety, but this particular artist is local. We took him on, started displaying and showing the work, put him up on the website, and, worked to develop a biography that we can share with our collectors, start putting out social media posts. And then, my sales staff is talking to people about his work. And from, October clear through the end of April, all of that effort, all of that time, we didn't generate a single sale for this artist.
Wow.
And that can be a little bit nerve-wracking,
Yeah, I
and you
bet.
start saying, oh, maybe we thought this work was interesting, maybe it's not as interesting as we thought it was. Maybe it's not as good a fit as we thought it was, and it was a bit different than the other work that we're carrying. Um, and so, that's frustrating. Here we've got, probably 15, 17 feet of wall space, that's costing, I'm paying $6,000 a month in rent for my gallery space, and that wall space is not producing sales. And you think about that. But what I have learned over the years is that it does take time. And it does take that investment. And here, just over the last couple of weeks, and in fact, it was interesting because of the first sales that we made for him at the end of April, we sold two pieces in the morning and a third piece in the afternoon. And then within the next week, sold three more pieces. So a total of six pieces over the course of 7 or 8 days for this artist. And, even though philosophically and theoretically, I should have known that this might be the case. it's still nerve-wracking for us,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
To
sure.
go through, and nerve-wracking for him, right? He's worried
Yeah.
that Xanadu collectors are rejecting his work and aren't interested, and it's a very delicate position for all of us to be in.
Was it his first time
Uh,
in a gallery?
First, I guess you could say his first time in a commercial retail gallery. He has shown his work with some art consultants who do commercial projects and that kind of thing. And then he's done art shows and festivals and that kind of thing. But he's a young guy, so just getting started. And um, I've had to give some guidance on how to wire the artwork and signatures and all those kinds of things. And it is very gratifying then to come to that point where we start seeing some sales happen and we're rewarded for those efforts.
That's great. That's great. So it was basically a success story, and I'm sure.
Well, that remains to be seen, right?
Yeah.
We never know, and there certainly um, there have been many artists that I've taken over the years where ultimately maybe it didn't end up working out. I'm not showing the same artists today. Well, I'm showing a few of the same artists today that I was when we opened in 2001. My father is one of them. But there are other artists where you try your best and you put your best efforts forward, and ultimately you have to have a hard conversation where you say, I don't think it's you. I don't think it's your work. I just think that we didn't end up being the right fit. And, I encourage the artist to go and talk to other galleries until they find that fit. But persistence is the name of the game here.
Yeah, I think that's a good word too, because I have talked to other artists, and it's like, okay, I'm in a gallery, and it says, well, that's great. You're in a gallery. Okay, so what does that mean? It says, well, my life's fixed. I mean, I
Yeah,
have no
right.
problems. I
No.
say, no, that doesn't sound quite right, does it?
No, again, never until we're dead
Yeah.
will the story be written, and there are going to be challenges along the way, and things that were working a few years ago that aren't working now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we just have
exactly.
we're like sharks, we got to keep
Mm.
moving, or if we're not moving forward, we have the potential to fail.